And we're live. Thank you for joining me, Ben. It's been good. It's good to see you.
It's good to be back. Thanks, Rin. Thanks for having me on your channel again.
Okay, and we're going to go to let's see. I have a lot of tabs up, and this isn't as simple as Google Hangouts.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's not as simple, so I had
Do,
to
do I sound all right? I should be coming through this microphone here.
yeah, you sound fine.
Oh, cool.
Let's see. I am going to screen share. Um, Okay. Um, let's see. In my absence, several left leaning creators had risen to prominence, and I was figuring out what I wanted to do when I returned to YouTube. Their content was certainly inspiring to me. It seemed like being an anti SGW was slowly going out to vogue. I have something to say about that. I mean, that to me is a lot to do with YouTube strict rules.
Yeah, and my it's also stood out to me. These creators was essentially saying the same thing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
YouTube. Yeah, YouTube is the thing about the YouTube rules is they're so it's a bit sort of like what's the word, like Kafka. You don't always know when you're breaking rules and what rules you're breaking, and they don't tell you. They'll delete a video you've made, or they'll strike your channel. They won't even tell you exactly what it is you've done wrong. Um, but she said what's let me just go through this again. They received criticism, but I noticed how frequently that criticism was actually engaged in their ideas, not usually misrepresentations of them. You see, she then goes on. The reason is, I mean, Cat Black is someone I've only vaguely familiar with. I'd heard her name. I went to her channel and found I'd subbed to it. I don't remember subbing to her channel, but I must have watched at least one of her videos. But I really don't know an awful lot about her, except that heard the complaints she makes in this article. It's quite a long article.
It's a really
Mm,
long article, and I believe that it should be shorter. But yeah, she's saying that like being an extra into HW instead of Vogue, but that has a lot to do with the strict rules. So it kind of it kind of goes after anti SJW content creators with a pinpoints accuracy, like almost like with the accuracy of a search. And I think Project Veritas covered that, didn't they?
mm,
I think Project Veritas talked about how like these websites are targeting, specific people with, pinpoint accuracy, like people who would say something like keck or,
yeah,
kind of like they kind of go with how like anti-SJWs talk to each other, and it's kind of a lot like if you say keck or snowflake, I guess, like if you had, like an anti-SJW, lexicon, I guess it's like they kind of went after you, and it's
yeah,
kind of like basically, the rules seems to be like in favor of, the SJWs, basically. Like, if you say
mm,
anything racist, anything sexist, anything homophobic, anything transphobic, like anything like think Anita Sarkeesian, think Anita
mm.
Sarkeesian, or like those old Lacey Green videos. Like, if you say anything that comes across as problematic, it needs to be gone.
I've noticed that there's definitely a left wing bias in mainstream social media. I mean, this is almost it's almost a no brainer. The people who get banned tend to be the people who get persecuted the most are the anti SJWs, the anti feminists, and people like that. Sargon, for example, he's gone. I think all the alt writers have gone. Milo, Millennial Woes, they've all gone now. Um, this it's not exclusively. I mean, the thing is, like Kevin Logan, I notice has had a bit of trouble, and I think this has probably got a lot to do with the fact that he he's very critical of others and quite aggressively critical of other individuals. And as a result, he gets his channel flagged. He's recently been banned from Twitch. I think that is an explanation of why he is very very pro SJW. He's pro TE, so like intersectional, anti turf, in other words. I think the reason though he gets struck down is because of his aggressive attitude to other people. I mean, I should say it explains it. It doesn't justify it. I'm not in favour of anyone being persecuted in this way, regardless of their opinions. Um, what Cat? It could be what happened with Cat is it could be that she like I suppose this is always going to happen if you make a big splash on social media. And Kat has, she has some very impressive viewing figures here. 45,000 4 weeks ago. She's had 67,000 views on a video in 4 weeks. I struggle to get 1,000 views myself now. And as a result, it seems that you get into conflict inevitably with others. There are some people who seek out conflict for its own sake. And she then describes how she said she made some statements which she said were taken by other people and misrepresented. So, for example, she said that the Irish immigrants to the United States in the early days of the United States were not in indentured servitude like black people were, so they were not slaves. And this, she said that people on the other side, that she uses words like debate bros, left-wing dirtbags, and words like that. They said this means she doesn't care about white people being enslaved. And they said she's obviously anti-white. Now, she claims that's not what I meant. And she then says that everyone kept repeating her, commentating on her content with this misrepresentation. And she says again and again and again, that's not what I meant. I didn't actually say that I thought white people should be slaves. And she was even invited onto channels to debate these positions that she said she never took. I've only heard her side of the story here, but I feel some sympathy there with her, because this sort of thing has happened to me. I've said something or I've made a comment, and this has been picked up by people I describe as trolls. I call them trolls. I don't know if that's accurate to call them that. They are people who post anonymously online horrible things about me, to the point where they even approach people I know behind my back, and try to turn them against me and things like this. It's what's known as a relational aggression. And it seems that Kat has been, if what she says is true, and I've only heard her side of the story, she has been treated in a similar way. And that's a bad thing. I wish it didn't happen. But I don't know how you avoid this sort of thing if you have a big presence on social media.
Okay, I'm going to continue reading. While I admire this content, it's also stood out to me that many of these creators were essentially saying the same thing that I has said, but it's being received in a vastly different way. Yeah, I experienced that similarly from actually the far left, from the far left, where it's kind of a lot like what a minute. Let me just continue reading. Let's see. Let's see. Man, I lost my. I'll just reread it. While I might have considered, also stood out to me that many of these creators were essentially saying the same thing that I had said, but being received in a vastly different way. All of these creators were whites and had, at least on paper, more radical positions than I. They certainly received criticisms, but I noticed how frequently criticism was actually engaged in their ideas, not usually misrepresentations of them. There were certainly grifters who did that, but even when being criticized, they were focused. Um, they were often complimented. While I love these creators, I felt compelled to make videos called "Why Is Love to the Civil Rights?" Yeah, I mean, I have noticed that too. Like, do you remember, like, back in like 2015, where the biggest insults of the left was cis white straight male? And it's kind
Mhm.
of like now, like, that Brexit was dominating all you really see is like cis white people. Like I thought that that was like really ironic because, like, when anti SJW content was really popular, they were like, "You cis white straight smell." That was the biggest insult was from the left, cis white straights and heads, whatnot. But now it's kind of like now that they got rid of like anti SJW content. I mean, the only thing that really changed is that like more communism, but it's still mostly whites, and like you don't see like a single black person. And the black people who are there are complaining about how terribly the left treats them. Like at least with that guy, see, he was happy anti SJW, at least with some black guy, he was really, really happy and felt like a sense of belonging in the anti SJW community. But the black creators, like the only black creators that I know of, feel ostracized by the left. Well, that problem didn't exist with anti SJWs.
Right, I didn't. If they've been ostracized, I mean, I don't know if I don't follow breadsheet closely enough to say exactly what may motivate these conflicts. I know that when I see people like, for example, there's what's his name, non-compete. He's of course a white guy, and it does seem to be. I mean, most of the ones I see are white, certainly. I mean, there's Luna, his wife, non-compete's wife is called Luna, and she's got her own channel. She's Vietnamese. Um, I mean, you see, there are different pockets of communities I find online, and there's like the A list. There's like the big, when it comes to the bread tube, there's like the big names and the most popular ones. So you have like non-compete. There's what's his name, Philosophy Cat, not Philosophy. What's he called? Philosophy Tube. He's a trans guy or trans woman. Very very technical guy. And there's a few others. However, there's also like there's even some tankies in that who are black. Like there's what's Agit Prop TV. He's very radical. He's black. And there's Tommy. I don't know if you know, you can't include Tommy Sotomayor because he's kind of like a comedian, and if anything, he's kind of a shitlord, really, isn't he? So, from what I can see, yeah, I can see that probably most of the bread tube people I know are white. This is not necessarily a criticism. I personally wouldn't, unlike Cat, I wouldn't see that necessarily as a deficiency. It could be that that's just the way we are. Different people, different groups of people do gravitate towards different interests. And if the white bread tubers have become more popular, it may not necessarily be because there's kind of tacit racism among YouTube audience. It could be, but that conclusion tends to be assumed rather than deduced. There may be other reasons for it. What I would say to anybody, if you just produce the best content that you can, this is what I do. I mean, I'm white and I struggle to get 1,000 views on my videos. I'm definitely shadow banned. My response is simply to produce the best content that I can and get the best audience I can and be proud of what I do. Just be proud of what you do yourself. I think is the best thing to do, Rin.
Yeah, but there's something that I wanted to comment on. Let's see. Like because there's some dishes specifically that I outlined. Well, I admire this content. It also stood out to me that many of these creators were essentially saying the same thing I had said, but received in a different way. Received in a different way, and I wanted to comment on that. Let's see, like I experienced the same thing from the online left. When there was Sargon and vernaculars said something, it was received better than me. Like they actually had their ideas targeted. Like people actually would go like, okay, I'm going to target Sargon's ideas specifically. Targeting the ideas itself was important, while I was basically told that I was incapable of thinking and that Sargon was my daddy. And this is from the online left. So, like, the online left engaged with me and engaged in Sargon in totally different ways. Like, how come with Sargon, they actually went after Sargon's ideas, and particularly but wait, how come with me they didn't go after my ideas? They just going to tell me that I'm incapable of thinking that Sargon was my daddy. They just going to assume that I get all of my ideas from Sargon when we are totally different people. Like, for example, me, I've never been banned off Twitter when Sargon got banned like 3 times. Twitter, and it's never ever been assumed because, we deviate from someone that me and Sargon actually have differences of opinion.
Mm. It's very frustrating because different creators will sometimes come out with the same ideas at the same time, and this has happened to me a lot too. I've come out with a certain idea, I've made a deduction of some kind, only to find that another more popular creator or another bigger creator than myself has come up with the same thing. And there tends to be a little bit of there is definitely like a pecking order where the big content creators tend to get looked up to. People will put comments on there hoping they get a like or a reply. They tend to be, yeah, they tends to be a bit of is it rude to say ass kissing? I don't know if that's not, I don't know if that's too rude or not, or fair, but that's what it looks like to me sometimes. I myself, I mean, my own level of creation is, it's not bad. I'm satisfied with it, but I sometimes I get the feeling sometimes that if I had been somebody else, or if I'd been in a different position in terms of my popularity, I'd get a different treatment. As it is, I get people saying I'm stupid or calling me names. It doesn't bother me much. I mean, I'm a tough guy. I'm a big ugly ex-hospital porter. I can take it. I try to make a joke out of it, but I sometimes think that they'll come onto my channel and be really really nasty. They'll go on to another lady. There's this other lady I know who's talks about similar subject to me. I won't name her, but the same people appear in the live comment sections in my videos and in hers, and they will be polite to her and nasty to me. And it's sad that that's the case. I mean, Kat. You see, the thing about Kat is later on. I mean, she starts talking a little bit more about her dealings with Vaush that quite shocked me, and
Yeah, I
I
took
think that might
most
have
of
something to do with it. I might have something to do with her attitude.
Yeah, I took screenshots of all the things that were interesting. That's the way, like, the audience could read along because her article was really long and I thought some of it was redundant. Ironically, the fans of these creators would come to the comment section of that video and say that I was simply jealous of the success of white creators. They overload was said and assumed that my videos was an attack against them. Many of them didn't even actually listen to the video in full. That is the problem with YouTube, I
Mm.
would say. And so the
Yeah.
creators I spoke about as their audience to hear what I was saying. I resented the idea that I could once again devote all this time to clearly communicating my dogs, but the only way they'd listen is if my work was first presented to them by a white person.
Mm. What not?
It felt it felt like rather it was misrepresenting me or hearing me out. Viewers couldn't process my work until a white person framed it for them, and that was extremely hard for me to handle. I couldn't I couldn't believe that despite clearly naming and stating my issues, that people still believed what I was complaining about was clouds. What confused me about that accusation was I was very much struggling with the idea that class should be a goal of political conversations online. This feeling has made the phenomenon of the leftist streamer quite confusing to me.
So she's saying that they would listen to the same idea if it came from what she says here, a white person, but not listen to if it came from her. Um, it
It
could
all
be.
depends if
Mm,
she name dropped. I don't know. I don't watch her videos, but I do know that if fans feel like you are attacking their favorite content creators, then it's kind of a lot like if they take it personally, more personally than if you criticized them. Fans could be because I noticed that like when Vaush criticized Drag, he got bombarded with downvotes and nasty insults. And I noticed that when what's her name? I forgot her name. Oh, Lily Simmons. When Lily Simmons, her old YouTube name was Gushin Gang. When she criticized Drake, she got bombarded with downvotes and nasty insults.
Yeah.
And she was like really nice and polite about it. And
Unfortunately,
it's so
you could be as polite as you like. That people, if people start a hate mob against you, they will twist your image and they will drag your name through the mud to make it look like you're someone you're not.
yeah,
As for what
yeah.
she said,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I've seen it firsthand where people would, twist everything around because like the problem is name dropping. Like I don't know if Cat Black name drops, but if she does name drop, that is an excellent way to get people to go like, okay, I'm not going to listen to you because
Mm,
people would, be a lot like feel like you're attacking their favorite creator and then they'll become like really protective and they'll become really nasty and horrible, but they're doing it to protect their content creator.
yeah, it could be. Now, what she says in the actual statement here? She said that they would listen to the idea if it came from a white person, but not from her. I think it's you could put it another way, which is they would listen to it if it came from a bigger, more popular debate bro than me, and that those people just happen to be white. Whether they're listening to it because they're white or they're more likely to listen to it because they're more popular. It depends because you could get into a kind of a bit of circular logic here, where most debate bros are white, therefore most people listen to the biggest, most popular debate bros. But are they popular because they're white and they're not willing to listen to non-white people? I don't know because I'm looking at Cat Black's channel. She's a full-time YouTuber. She has how many subs has she got? She's got some. I don't think. Oh, she's got 452,000 subs. She's got almost 500,000 subs. Um, and her like I said, I must have watched at least one of her videos because I've subbed to her, but she's getting like 75,000, 153,000 views on this. I wouldn't call her this is not really being kind of ignored or people aren't listening to her. I would say if she's getting this level of attention. Her profile must be quite high if she's getting those numbers. She's had that number of subs, including myself, and she's getting videos, and she's getting videos with that number of views, and so. I wonder. You see, later on, she says something really quite extraordinary, which leads me to believe she may be a bit scorned. Should we go on to that, or do you want to? Do you want to go on to that now, or do you want to perhaps cover that later?
We could cover because it's like I have taken numerous
Mm.
screenshots, but I didn't get the whole thing because I left out the things that I thought were redundant.
You see, she gets into an argument with Vaush, and Vaush is he's quite a
Oh yeah,
bombastic,
I covered
argumentative
that.
person, and this leads to it's nothing wrong with saying this. She's saying it publicly. This leads to a kind of relationship where there's flirting, and indeed, it appears they may have sent each other naked pictures. I mean, she describes him as having an unimpressive penis. Pardon me, but that's what she says.
Yeah, like I
Which
was.
means yeah, she must have had some kind of online relationship with him. I think this sort of thing's a bad idea, by the way. Don't send naked pictures to other people online unless you know them very well. But um, so it appears there was some kind of relationship between them. I don't know. This is completely new information to me, and I haven't heard Vorsh's side of the story. But
Yeah,
that's what
I
she's
was
saying here.
gonna hoping to get to that later. Like
All right. Well, we can leave
you
it for
kind
now
of
if you like.
mentioned it a bit too soon.
Sure, we can get into it later if you prefer. But I think but that I think will just throw a light on her attitude at the moment. It appears that could well influence the way she's feeling right now. I mean, it would. I'm not. This does inevitably for almost everybody. I would, if I was in her position, I would have some kind of emotional. This sort of thing would have an emotional impact on me too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was hoping that we could have talked about that later.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's kind of like I did take many screenshots, and I was hoping that we could go in chronological order instead of going in not in order, because it's like, I was hoping we could go in chronologically order, and you skipped several. You skipped way ahead.
I did, yeah. But we do it. All right, we'll do it in chronological order. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way it's easier for anybody who would watch later to follow along.
Yeah.
What's our credit to be helpful to others? I overlooked my initial reservations and tried to understand the tactics behind their approach. However, I predominantly saw them through the lens of Twitter, where I'd seen them engage in racism, sexism, and transphobia in an apparent pursuit of leftist principles. Oh, I know exactly what she's talking about. Even though I don't think I am allowed to post it on I don't think I'm allowed to post it on YouTube because YouTube um heavily censors that.
Yeah.
Um
But
you
I
know,
must say, I've seen people who say that they're left wing. I've seen. I mean, there's certain people expose them. You know, and like other people on the left will expose them, but they will use racial slurs. They will use gender slurs, and as for the transphobia thing, that's a huge rabbit hole at the moment because it is cut the entire left in half.
yeah, because like when she says Twitter where I see them engage in racism, sexism, and transphobia, there is actually a subreddit that collected every single racist thing that Vasha
Mhm.
said and collected every single transphobic thing that Vasha said. There was even a very viral you know what's it called? Okay, like there was a person who posted a tweets video, but this video had like a collection of each and every single transphobic statements, that Vashis ever made. And it lasted for like 2 minutes, like
Mhm, yeah.
2 minutes of, various clips. It would be like, I don't know, 20 different clips of various transphobic statements that, Vashis did.
Have you? I don't know if you're familiar with John Ronson. He's a British journalist. Have you heard of him?
No, never heard of them.
He's written a lot recently um, about people's behavior on the internet and about how that there's a lot of sociological study and psychological study about people's behavior on the internet, and there's even something called social media narcissism, and this is basically a state of mind people get into where they become incredibly angry with on social media, and then they go into a kind of manic fit where they start behaving in a grossly antisocial way, in a way they wouldn't in real life. If they met people in real life, they wouldn't behave like this. And it may be connected to the fact that there's no direct contact with the person you're abusing. It's very cowardly, actually. I think in some people are motivated simply through cowardice because they can abuse somebody with impunity. You can't punch someone through a computer monitor. You can't do that. So you are separated from the person you're abusing, and they can't really retaliate, especially if you're bigger and more powerful than they are. And so you get and then they this kind of cruelty, this cruel side really comes out of them. They do things and say things they would never in real life. And I think I've seen this everywhere online. I really have. I've been the targeted of myself. I mean, luckily, I'm a pretty robust person, but they sometimes they will target people far more vulnerable than I, young girls on their own in their bedroom and things like that, and say the most horrible things. They'll threaten them. I've seen uh, people collecting threats of uh, death threats, threats to rape somebody, threats to torture and mutilate somebody, threats to plant a bomb in their house, threats to kill members of the family, things like that. I've seen these things targeted at people. Rebecca Watson, for example, the skeptic feminist. She had all this. She was sent pictures of dead bodies um, by people who could never ever behave like that in real life. What's right? It's sick. I mean, I wouldn't do that myself. I would never ever treat people differently online than I do everywhere else. But they do this sort of thing all the time. And BreadTube is no exception. They suffer from social media narcissism as well. And it's sad. I just think it's sad that happens. I don't know why they do it, but maybe it's like it's the suppressed school bully attitude. I think maybe.
Yeah. I was told repeatedly that whatever I interpreted as bias was simply technical, When I said this didn't seem very left leaning, I know what she means because it's kind of a lot like I still remember back in 2015, where it's like the biggest insults or, you're a cis white straight male and none of that. But I remember Anita Sarkeesian, I
Mm.
remember like Lacey Green, and I remember like Bearing's videos to Christiosity and Christy Winters, and I remember all that. This seemed very left leaning. Their audience would browbeats me with very Jordan Peter-esque demands. I watch their 10-hour long live stream to understand the full context of what they said, what they said. And you gotta be like realistic, I would say. Like, you gotta be realistic of how many people would want to sit through a very long live stream. Like, this is the reason why I don't watch Vaush, but it's also the reason why I don't watch Cat's Black. I don't watch either one of them because it's like their live streams are way too long. Like, if you want somebody to listen to you, I mean, I would say like it should be a short form of video, but it should be at least the highest you should go should probably be 30 minutes if you want to be listened to.
Yeah, and
Because
obviously, yeah,
even I would even see people on the left complain about ContraPoints videos being way too long. Like there would be people on the left, people who would call themselves communists or socialists or whatever, people who are like part of, the people her audience would complain that her videos are way too long. And it's like if you want people to listen to you, try not to go over 30 minutes.
yeah. It's I think if you are going to make a video that's much longer, you have to accept that the only people who are going to watch that are the people who are your diehard fans, the people who really do like what you do, and they're willing to listen to you for long periods of time. If you want to meet new people, you have to produce short videos for them to watch, just which are short, sweet, and get directly to the point. Um, but as now, I have a very low opinion of tactical bias. I think it is simply an excuse to be a bastard and get away with it. I've
Yeah,
seen it on both the left and the right, and they say, "But no, 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 we're just the pendulum's just swinging the other way a little bit. Don't worry, eventually it'll settle in the middle." And what are you talking about? You're abusing somebody. You're being cruel and unpleasant to somebody in a way you would hate to be treated like that yourself. And then to me, I think it's just a cop out to say tactical bias.
Yeah, like I've seen the anti-SJWs do it first, and then after the anti-SJWs did it first, then I'll see like what's his name, David Sherrod's copying that tactic and using the tactic against the anti-SJWs. Then like Kevin Logan would use that sort of aggressive tactic. Then Vaush is kind of a lot like, well, they would go like, well, it was really you know um well, people listen to anti-SJWs. People listen to them. So it's kind of like you see David Sherrock first. That's the first person I saw doing it. And you also see, or actually, I think, Kevin Logan was the first time I saw somebody do something like that. Then more and more and more people would copy the anti-SJW tactic, but against the anti-SJWs. And like nobody liked it. Nobody liked being the victim of that sort of behavior. Nobody likes being made fun of because of their appearance.
Yeah, you mix that up with social media narcissism, and it's a quite toxic cocktail. Which I feel sorry for the people who are on the receiving end of that, whoever they are, if they are not able to defend themselves in any way. You see, I actually once challenged my abusers to a meeting. I actually said to them, "We'll meet up. I'll meet up with you or somewhere. We arranged a date and a time," and they didn't show up. Obviously, for a 14-year-old bedroom feminist, that's not an option. And so, when you get into this this kind of recrimination, because there's a huge amount of recrimination, it's got a lot to do with identity politics. And now both the left and the right play identity politics, and I think it's inevitable that for every action has a reaction. So every time the left play in identity politics in some way, the right will return with identity politics. Indeed, so there's a kind of tit for tat ID poll cycle that's going on at the moment, and again, this can lead to a huge amount of recrimination where each side will feel they're hard done by, each side will blame the other, each side will employ tactical bias and justify it. But it just causes more unnecessary conflict. It means it causes a breakdown of dialogue, and very little progress is made, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I agree with you. Like, for every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. It's kind of a lot like, like the debate me bros were originally the anti-SJWs, where, when Andy Worski used to be an anti-SJW, he would always invite the leftover for debates and whatnot. And then now you see, Vaush being a debate me bro, but for the left, because it's kind of like the anti-SJW started it like debate me, debate me, debate me, debate me, debate me. I bet you're too scared for a debate. Like, I think even Sargon was like, I'm not sure because Sargon wasn't that bad. Sargon
Hmm.
wasn't that bad, but like there was like, debate me, debate me, debate me from the anti-SJWs. And the SJWs declined. They're like, well, you're a coward, you're scared. But now Vasha says, debate me. And then, you see like Sticks, Chest, and Hammer being like, I refuse. You see Circle going, I refuse. And all these people are refusing. And it's kind of like Shieldhead jumped in. And it's like, wait a minute. Shieldhead, because I could get what Shieldhead is, coming from. Like, years ago, the reverse was going on. Years ago, like, you would see, like, the anti-SJWs demanding for debate, and you see people like Curiosity saying, "No, I refuse." But now you see like people like Vaush, demanding for a debate, and then you see like Sargon and Sticks him or refuse. It's kind of like you said, like it's like each and every action causes an equal but opposite reaction. It's why like I still don't like Francesca Ramsey. Like you see people on the left, engaging in identity politics, like Francesca Ramsey, who or BuzzFeed. We're going all the way back to 2015. And then you see the growth of the far right. But it felt like before, 2015, the far right was the dwindling, like it felt like, it was becoming a relic of the past, and only like a handful of people had those views, and you can mostly ignore them. But because of Francesca Ramsey, I blame Francesca Ramsey for this. Francesca Ramsey brought back identity politics, and there's BuzzFeed and BuzzFeed bringing up identity politics, and then you see the backlash of it all. You see the equal but opposite reaction from the far right. That was dwindling, dwindling down.
Yeah, it's
Like very few people were having that idea. That idea would be for most people's grandparents. It would be backwards and outdated. But Francesca, that's the reason why I still, to this very day, I still do not like Francesca Ramsey, because like people now look at the far right and be like, oh, I think they have a point now. They not have a point. You not now let me listen to what you had to say, because it's, like the far right, back, like the baby boomers time was to be anti-racist is to be anti-white, and millennials were originally like laughing at that, like anti-racist is anti-white. It's like that is ridiculous. That's stupid. We're not going to listen to you. But then, like, look at what Francesca Ramsey did. She, gave the far rights a valid point.
yeah, and she's not the only one. It's a lot of people who listen to the far right content creators who are mostly off mainstream social media now, they'll say their biggest complaint is, I'm fed up with all these people like Christy Winters, for example, going, oh, white people, bleh, white people, things like that. And you see that is anti-white to say things like that. And they say, well, so I'm going to listen to these content creators who will not only support me and provide a community for me, but also will provide an explanation of why this is happening. Very often, the explanation is not correct, and it involves things such as tactical bias of their own kind. And either way, both it ends up in a little kind of like a little echo chamber, a little bubble of people, a community. And I've seen that everywhere. I mean, I think this is kind of what Cat Black's main problem is here. But it would help actually if I think it would help if there was just people calmed down and spoke to each other more, and you got like a proper debate in the form that there used to be, perhaps in the pre-internet days, where people would actually have to sit around a table in a pub or something and look each other in the eye when they're making their points, rather than knowing there's hundreds of miles between you and it's just a picture on a monitor and you're tapping on a keyboard. So I think it is
Actually, I hate to interrupt you, but
okay.
okay, I noticed that when Temple debated Vaush in person, Vaush was significantly nicer.
Well, right, I've not seen Vaush do an in-person debate ever, so I don't watch him regularly. I mean, I've got better things to do, quite frankly. But that would be interesting to seeing him in the same room. I've noticed others. It's what you just said rings a bell actually, because I've seen other people. In fact, I've experienced this myself of being with somebody I know online, and they've been much nicer to me online, much nicer to me face to face than online. I've even met up with people at conferences who blocked me. They blocked me on social media, and I bump into them and I say, "Oh, hello, Ben. How you doing?" And we shake hands. It's like, yeah, it is. I think, unfortunately, the divisions we have at the moment between each other do have an awful lot to do with the internet and the fact that we socialize online so much. It doesn't mean they can't be overcome. It doesn't mean people can't. They can't. There can be a code of conduct when you're online, which you can agree to adhere to. You see, whenever you refuse to debate someone, this accusation, oh, you're a coward, you're going to be proved wrong. That's every single time. It's almost a reflex response. But I don't know many people who won't debate people because of their opinions. I know a handful, but very, very few. Usually, it's because I don't like the way that person behaves. I
Yeah,
don't want to,
that's
that's it.
it. That's it. Like usually when people like I refuse to debate you, it has much to do like the way the person behaves. Like when I was talking to Curiosity, it would be a lot like the reason why she doesn't want to participate in the basis because she feels like she's been taken way out of context and misrepresented. But when it comes to the reason why Stick, Sex, and Hammer doesn't want to debate Vosh, it's because she feels misrepresented. Over and over
Mm.
again, the idea is like, you're gonna misrepresent me. Like Curiosity was like, hey, I don't want to be an embarrassed Sharon because he's mean to me and he misrepresents me. But you see the inverse, like you see like Stitch Sessions Hammer and Circle of Avocado go, I don't want to go to Vaush's channel because he's mean and he misrepresents people, and it makes me think of the Bible. The Bible says, treats your enemies the way you would want to be treated, like, and I think that there is a point to what the Bible says about treat your enemies the way you want to be treated, because it's kind of like, especially like, sure, if you are a nobody over the internet, then your impact is going to not really be anything. Like if you have 0 followers, you're not going to have much of an impact, or 10 followers. But if you have, a large following, and like, it's kind of goes like every action has an equal but opposites reaction. The moment you do something to an opponent, the people go like, well, you keep doing this to us, so we're going to do it to you to see how you like it. Kind of like, you know like the anti-SJWs were to debate me bros. And then it's like, okay, you keep wanting to debate us, we're gonna prop up Vaush because you keep demanding for debates. Or it's kind of like how people from the anti-SJWs kept dogpiling smaller people on Twitter. It's like, okay, you do this to us, so we're gonna prop up, take down MRAs because you did to us, you made it fair game. You made it a fair game when originally, like from talking to people on the left, they originally just wanted to be left alone. They originally just wanted to, be left alone and do their videos in peace. It's like,
Mm.
like the platform is speaking up for the both of us. Why can't I just express myself, But, yeah.
Yeah, it's what you describe is kind of like is known as the golden rule. I mean, it is in the Bible. It actually predates the Bible. It appears in ancient Greek philosophy of ethics as well. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. And it's a very very good rule, and it could de-escalate so much of the problems we have here. Another thing that would de-escalate is in the cycle you've just described. If somebody was simply to say, "All right, look, let's just leave it now, shall we?" That's all they've got to say. All right, we've been attacking each other over and over again. You have the last word if you want. You strike the last blow, and then could we please just stop? That would help. And to do that, you've got to get over the internet narcissism. You've got to put your ego to one side, and you just got to say, let's just stop all this now, please. That would really calm things down an awful lot if that happened. I've been in that position myself recently, actually, with in the last week or so, actually.
That's really effective. Like, like I would say to a person, you have my permission to have the last word. And
Yeah.
then there would be a lot like that would, annoy them. Like when I say you have my permission to have the last word, it's like that would just annoy them. They would just stop speaking.
Yeah, that would put an end to the argument essentially because they'd be waiting for some kind of retaliation from you. I mean, see, Vaush is he's he's very intense, isn't he? He's like the Energizer Bunny. He can't really stay calm about anything. He just has to be he's incredibly in your face whatever he's talking about. He's very very passionate about it, and he talks and he talks and he gets angry, and he would be a difficult person for me to talk to. I think for that reason. But for some people like him, I think it's not within their mentality to be able to do that. Someone else has to take the initiative to create some kind of reconciliation. Without that, you have an endless cycle of revenge and counter revenge.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the growth of the far right is the retaliation of the left bringing identity politics into it because their identity politics really was anti-whites. It's kind of like
Mm,
where a person would make an article about how being scared of their black child having a white play, a black friend.
mm. Yeah, and unfortunately, you see what happened is that identity politics is a form of that because each side sees itself as being hard done by the other side, and each essentially is feeding off each other.
Yeah, it's why I still am angry about Francesca Ramsey. Like for me, I blame Francesca Ramsey and MTV Decoded. That's who I blame a large part of this, in BuzzFeed because think about who the anti-SJWs were replying to the most. They were mostly angry about Francesca Ramsey and
Mm,
MTV Decoded, as well as many of the articles that were being released at the time, which were race baiting, race trolling, where it just is kind of like, I mean, imagine if you were a fan of CNN and then you feel persecuted over something you have zero control over, such as your race. It's like, if you're white, you have no control over that.
no, you're born a certain way. You don't choose which country you're born in or who you are, which whether you're a man or a woman. It's just who you happen to be. Um, but yeah, I'm not above this sort of thing myself. I do get, for example, I mean, you mentioned Francesca Ramsey. Another person who springs to mind is Steve Shives. Now, he's almost a self caricature. He has a 4 level block list. So if almost everyone I know is blocked by Steve Shives because they follow people that he doesn't like to a level of 4 different permutations, which means there must be millions of people blocked by Steve Shives if you do the maths. And he keeps making these videos where he has a go at all kinds of people on the right. And so when Bering trolled him. Do you remember the time when Bering infiltrated his Ask Me Anything video? It was very, very funny, and I laughed. I did laugh when that happened. And he made a cartoon that was really funny of Steve Shives, and I laughed my head off because I did feel Steve Shives deserves that.
Well, I
Um,
mean, I don't know. My opinion of Steve Sharp's changed a bit over the years, mainly because it's like, isn't he preferable to a person who would report you for any little thing and
would
get
he
your
not do?
account
If Yeah,
suspended?
well, if he wouldn't do that, then yes, because of course there are people who will. There are people who will report you and flag you. I don't know whether he does do that. If he doesn't, then that to me is it's a white mark on his record, and I think it does. I hold him in higher esteem if he doesn't do that. Yeah, I mean blocking. I don't have a problem with people who block, but if they try to destroy your life, then that's again, it's something quite new. Stefan Molyneux actually said this on one of his shows quite recently. He used to get into very fierce debates with people, and but at the end of it, he wouldn't go and try and get them kicked out of their job, or wouldn't tell their family or their girlfriend that they'd been um, doing something evil with children or something like that.
Like, would you prefer that somebody blocked you, or would you prefer that that person reported you to get your, Twitter accounts taken down?
Oh,
I would rather
obviously,
be
yeah,
blocked.
obviously the former, yes.
Because you can't make a person want to have anything to do with you. You can't make a person, feel, you can't make a person want to socialize with you. You can't make a person want to engage with you.
Mm. I
And
mean,
I
I
think
do.
that people take an issue like, how come you don't want to talk to me? Like, I think it's like, wow, like, it hurts your ego. Like, you don't want to talk to me. I think it just hurts the ego, hurts the pride. But, you can't make a person want to talk to you, but at least they could do is not report your account.
Yeah, that's actually that's something I challenge of my own because I do tend to take these things very badly when people do that because I very often I think it's unfair. I mean, this happened recently. I was actually banned from an event, so I went to great lengths to attend anyway, and I felt hurt by the fact that I've been banned. When really it's something I should have just found a way to shrug off. Most people can just sort of shrug off and say, "What the hell? I'll move on." And so that's something that I myself have to deal with. I think.
Yeah, like it would be different if you were a huge fan of Steve Shives and he blocked you. But what I've noticed is that like many of the people who are blocked by Steve Shives don't even like Steve Shives. So it's like if you don't even like Steve Shives, then what does it matter that somebody you don't even like or respect blocked you? If you were a huge fan of his, then that's a different story. Like I feel empathy for people who are like, I'm a huge fan of Steve Shives and he blocked me. Okay, then like you have a point there. But if you don't even like him or respect him, then what difference does it make?
I know it's in the case of exactly, even if Steve Shives blocked me personally, which he hasn't, it wouldn't bother me that much, to be honest. However, the fact that he uses a block bot is even less personal. I mean, for example, Bronx Blogger has blocked me on Twitter, and it must be because he has a block bot. Because I've only interacted with him a couple of times on YouTube. I've left comments on his videos, and he sometimes replies. I doubt if he knows who I am. Um, and indeed, he responds to me on YouTube still, which means he hasn't blocked me on YouTube, so he doesn't know who I am. He's using a block bot as well. Um, I suppose I, I I just suppose I'm one of these people who just I like to see things simply. For example, I'm sort of quite one-dimensional in my dealings with other people. I I've only ever blocked somebody for their conduct, and then I myself have been blocked by people because of nasty things other people have said to them. There's a guy who I was good friends with. I go onto social media. I suddenly find it he's not there. He's disappeared. And I found that he's actually been at a conference where there's a lot of people I don't like, a lot of people who hate me are there, and they've been basically dragging my name through the mud. And he's been listening to them, and he decided to block me without telling me,
Yeah.
which that upset me a bit because he didn't even ask me to hear my side of the story. It just he listens to me being slagged off and just blocks me. But again, that was a person I quite liked. I was kind of close to. Makes it more difficult. But should we? We've been going nearly an hour in. Do you want to do 2 hours for this?
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I did mention 2 hours earlier.
yeah, we don't want to get too sidetracked because there's a lot. There's a lot in this article. Is there anything else you want to bring up in the article? Because
Yeah, that's the
I do want to
reason.
bring up the Vaush thing. I do want to get into the Vaush thing with
That's the
the
reason.
relationship.
That's the reason why I've been trying to stick with the article and not get to sidetracking going off on a tangent.
Yeah, we've been sidetracking each other a bit there, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah,
But
like you
carry
don't
on.
want to jump ahead. You don't want to go on a tangent because it hurts the ability to cover such a long article.
All right, let's carry on.
Okay, as a person who has been used to being misrepresented, I guess I should understand that recurs to some degree. But time and time again, this brand of right wing appealing leftists, oh yeah, because Vaush is trying to appeal to the right wing, content was not only unwelcoming to me, but incredibly antagonistic towards all of the discussions I had about race and gender. It seemed like being parts of the dirtbag left was being dismissive of these issues, and it was bizarre for me to observe that these particular people were being celebrated as further left than I was. It's strange to me how their ideas can parallel conservatives. Yeah, I could see what she means. Yet, um, was it where did it parallel conservatives? Yet somehow be further left than me. This confused me quite a bit, but my altercations with Vaush, the most prominent dirtbag leftist, would help me understand exactly why I should have gone with my guts and ignored this.
The the dirt this what people describe as dirtbag left and or debate bro and things like that. And Vorsh in particular, I don't know exactly what motivates Vorsh because he does sometimes say strange things that seem to be out of his normal political position. This could be because he wants to start an argument because clearly this is his job. He is essentially a bit of a drama queen, really, isn't he? It could also be because the left itself has gone down different alleyways. For example, a lot of these debate bro people and especially like a lot of the bread tubers are what's known as class reductionists. So in a sense, they're like classic Marxists. They think that racial ID poll is a distraction. In fact, I used to people at my trade union used to say this in the years ago. Say I don't think they get away with saying it now, but they used to say, "Oh, all this race, this sort of like feminism is a distraction. It's a deviation from the class struggle and things like that." And I think there are some people like Vaush who have that kind of idea. They still have that kind of classic Marxist attitude.
Um, okay. In recent years, I've come to regret the way we spoke about allyship during the heights of pop feminism in 2010. Me too. Like, I wasn't a feminist, but I did find it annoying. I did find it annoying. I didn't like Francesca Ramsey. I didn't like, BuzzFeed. I didn't like all of this pop feminism crap. And all of that, but it's like it felt like it was like white people were obligated to be allies. Like
Mm.
if you're white, you are obligated to be an ally. I did get to encourage a very performative. Yes, I've noticed that. I've noticed that. I did get encouraged a very performative expression of supports that focused on building a brand around
Yeah.
your allyship. I noticed that too. That's the reason why I made my own video about that. I made my own video about that, but my video was short and to the point, and
Mm.
only like a couple of people missed the point.
Yeah, I can't help thinking that some a lot of them do. A lot of them, they say this is a good way. This is a very, very, very perceptive thing. Building a brand around your allyship. They do. I do sometimes wonder about Kevin Logan. I mean, and for example, he was actually on a. He did a live stream. It was shortly after. What was that? What happened? There was some kind of big. There was some hoo ha. I think it was something gate. What was it called? And who he had on. He had nice mangoes. Um, Ina, polite conversations. He had her on the show, and she said, you did your first previous when all this broke out, your first live stream was with a white man, and you shouldn't have done that. And Kevin sort of like he frowned for a moment, and I thought, he clearly, I think deep down he felt that was an unfair criticism, but he didn't say anything. He just sort of like he I can't remember what his exact point was, but he was kind of reconciliatory towards Ina as a result of her criticism. And I suddenly saw Kevin, just tell her that's out of order. Tell her, please, just tell her that. Tell her, what does it matter? Why is it such a big deal? But he didn't, because I think his brand is his allyship. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's encouraging very performative expression of support that focus on building a brand around your allyship. Yeah, that, and I'm surprised that somebody like misunderstood my video, but it's a shorts video, so it's like, I believe that you are going to repost this on your own channel, so it's like, please check that animation I made. Because unlike Cat, like I kept it short. Instead of actually doing the work to truly unpack the impact of oppression and how the privileged benefit from it. Lots of people seem to have gotten the impression that putting things in their bios. Unfortunately, doesn't the was it the TRAs encourage people to put like she, her in their bio? It's like I just
Yeah.
yeah, like the TRS, but like please put your pronouns in your bios, and most people find it to be cringe.
Yeah, and there's some live streams where they demand that you give them your pronouns when you come on the stream, and they say, "Well, what's your pronouns?" I think it was Demon Mama does that, and Riley Grace. They say, "What are your pronouns? Give me your pronouns." Then they say, "Oh, all right, all right, right, right." I would say, "Well, just use whichever ones you feel are right. I don't care if you get them wrong." I would say, and she'd probably drop me from the stream if I did that. Things like that. But that's an example, I think, of branding and putting on. It is good putting on a performance for other privileged folks. Um, in other words, virtue signaling. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, virtue signaling. I remember how trying that was when I moved to Los Angeles, and the allies in my various communities seemed to only ever surround themselves with other privileged people, and it never truly stood up for the marginalized in a way that would require a bit of being a bit uncomfortable. For example, I remember when a venue in LA made it clear that they were going to specifically charge transgender women more for entry to as to discourage them from coming. I saw several other people who post pro-trans stuff in various social media pages still go to that event. I'm not surprised.
Well, the thing is, like
Mm,
she says this is really amazing. A venue in LA made it clear they were going to specifically charge transgender women more for entry, as to discourage them from coming. Now, I think this is a citation needed moment, because I've never. This is the kind of thing that would be in national headlines if it were true. Do you know what I mean? I wonder
mm,
if I have to ask her. Could you please give us the reference for exactly what venue was it, what event was it? Because I've never, I don't, I've never heard of any institution in today's world doing that sort of thing. And if they did, because if they did, it would be a huge scandal in the media. If it
mm.
happened, it happened. I mean, but I do ask for a citation there. But she says that the Allies went along. So carry on anyway, because she goes on to explain the Allies went there despite that.
I saw several other people who post pro trans stuff on the various social media pages still go to the events because they wanted to. In events, I wasn't welcomed, but they were. It's clear to me that some people deeply resist the idea of allyship in practice, but supports the idea of its in theory. At least, uh, at least that's the impression I get. It seemed like allyship has become a thing to be congratulated, not in. And it cuts it from there, but I don't think it matters so that much.
Mm. Well, so she feels basically that these people she regards as privileged folks are really only doing what they do for their own benefit, not because they care about others. Is that's her point? I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I've also noticed from the left. I noticed that from the left that their allyship seems to be very, very performative. Like like they do it for clouds. You know what I'm saying? Like they're doing it for internet cloud. Like that was what my video was about. Well, it's my video is my pinned tweets, and it's a recent video in my channel. You could go watch it, but it's just like it's basically very performative. You know, it's like they're being disingenuous.
Oh, is it the kind of animated one you did? I think.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
animated one I did.
Oh, I'll have to check. I watched a bit of it. I watched the rest of it. I know it's only a short one, but I haven't watched all of it yet. Sorry, but I will. Mm,
Yeah, it's like a 2 minute video.
mm. Yeah.
Let's see. Well, hold on. Let me screen share. Give me a sec. It's clear to me that some people deeply resent the idea of allyship in practice, but it seems to me that not the impression, not an impression of work you've done to understand what you're supporting. I've seen these allies get defensive when somebody expresses to them what they're doing isn't so. Oh my goodness! I mean,
Mm.
like me, Tyler Preston, your boy Pat, we've all experienced this. I mean, sure, we were anti-SGWs. Um, sure, me, your boy Pats, and Tyler Preston are all anti-SGWs, but it's kind of like they do get very defensive when you say that what you're doing isn't helpful. Um, the conversation shifts immediately from trying to address the issues they're claiming to be against, and it becomes all about exactly. They have a very narcissistic way of helping. Like it's basically humble bragging. It's basically
Mm.
humble bragging because it is a very narcissistic way of helping.
Yeah, I'd say to people in this position, it's not a kind of thing you want to do. It's if you really feel a certain thing, then do it. But this left wing virtue signaling is a waste of time, and inevitably, you see, you get sometimes get a response like this because someone will say you're allied with will say, well, you're not being very helpful doing this particular thing. Some of them will just then say exactly they'll be resentful against this, and they'll say, well, why aren't you grateful and things like this.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
why aren't you just grateful towards me? And
Exactly.
but I mean, I don't know what these particular individuals. They'll sometimes say that this criticism is unjust. I mean, for example, if I was in Kevin Logan's position with I know, I would say, well, look, this criticism, this what you're saying is not very helpful. Actually, isn't fair. And then sometimes a narcissistic response can then shift back onto the other person who they're allying, and then that's when argument starts. You see what I mean? Because both will claim that the other is being unfair, and a lot of arguments start that way. I've noticed.
Yeah, but I just think it's ridiculous to ask white people to be an ally or to also obligate white people to be
Mm.
an ally, even if they would naturally be against it. Because, it's kind of like I remember the early HW videos where they tried to obligate, almost seemed to try to coerce white people to be an ally.
Yeah, it's like I said. I think this social media narcissism can be found on both sides of this debate within the left. I think
And then
I've noticed it.
after
Yeah.
And then after trying to obligate white people to be an ally, then you wonder why it's performative instead of
Mm.
sincere.
Yeah, it essentially encourage on. Unfortunately, certain people will be encouraged to be, the. I mean, the word they use is they use words like simp. The right has a derogatory term for people like that. They call them simps, who ally with the left for their own leftist causes for their own benefit.
Yeah, because it's kind of like the left tries to obligate you and bully you into being an ally. And then they wonder why it's so performative and fake and
Mm.
insincere. When really, like, let's just let people do their own thing.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's a kind of social contract you shouldn't get involved with, in my view. Whichever side of the debate you're on, you shouldn't get involved with this social contract.
Yeah, people should be allowed to do their own thing. Like, if somebody wants to sincerely help out of the goodness of their heart, they should be able to. But a person shouldn't feel like obligated to help. Like they
Mm.
shouldn't feel bullied and harassed to help. Anyway, we're getting repetitive. We're going in circles. So I'm going to go back to the article.
Okay.
It's clear to me that people like Vaush really resents the idea of their advocacy being criticized in any way, and it doesn't help that. And it doesn't help that by virtue of being a cis white male. Oh, that's that old insult, that
He's a
really
cis
old
white man.
2015 insult. He's applauded and given a mountain of supports and credit for just saying literally anything. But you should
Oh.
watch Tyler Preston criticize Vaush, because Tyler Preston is a black anti-SJW. Like, Tyler Preston is against all of the I mean, he's against, social justice. Tyler Preston is an anti-SJW, and he has his criticisms of Vaush. And I think that you would I think you would get where Blaque is coming from
Tyler Press.
through.
I've heard of him. Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Mind you, I mean, I think maybe she says by virtue of him being a cis white man, he's applauded. As I said earlier, that might not be. It may not be as virtue of his demographic. It may be the fact that he's just very, very big and famous that he's applauded, and the fact that he happens to be that demographic may be either. It may simply be an effect rather than the cause of his fame.
Yeah, but I would say that he is not helpful at all whatsoever. Like, Tyler Person, he's an anti-SJW. He has a bunch of videos making fun of the SJWs. He has his own criticisms of Vaush, and I would heavily encourage you to check out Tyler Preston.
Yeah, I've heard of him. I don't know if I've ever watched him. I've heard his name. I'll check him out.
Okay, I'm supposed to be thankful that someone more privileged. Okay, that's really just annoying as. Okay, that then I said something supportive of transgender people, and if I criticized it, I'm a woke scold. It's funny because woke scold seems to have the exact same meaning as SJW. Have you
Yeah,
noticed that Wolf's Gold and SGW pretty much are synonyms of each other?
yeah. I suppose woke scold is the derogatory term for it. It's just to say, well, SJW is also derogatory, but a woke scold is a particular type. It's the person who catches you in a corner and says, be quiet, be quiet. Let a non-white person speak, let a woman speak, and you say, okay, and you sit there like that, and you go, well, say something. White silence is violence. I say, oh, I give up. Oh, haven't you got a lot of white fragility? Things. That's the kind of woke scold I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah, but
where you
I still
can't
find
win.
it amazing that Wolf's Gold and SJW seems to mean nearly the exact same thing. But it's just because,
Yeah.
like, well, what's wrong with us calling you SJWs if you're going to use Wolf's Gold?
Yeah, exactly. Well, woke scold's it's just a kind of SJW. It's always in your face, correcting any word you use wrong. If you use a politically incorrect term, they'll say, "Don't say that. Say something else." Um, but I've known a few woke scolds in my time. I was a member of a writers group once where there was a woke scold. It was really annoying.
And that's another thing. The dirtbag led hates wokeness, which almost always refers to the various conversations martial people have about their experiences with. Oh, me, that is so annoying. To me, citing misogyny while defending gender people draws attention to the lack of work he's done when it comes truly to understanding transphobia,
Hello, Professor.
transphobia and
Hello.
misogyny.
Sorry. I just said say hello to Professor Platypus in chat. Hey, mate. All right. It's the
Um,
dirtbag left in. I think you see a lot of them are sort of stuck in what I would call older type leftism. That is, class reductionism is the derogatory term for it, and so they haven't got on board with ID poll the way some other leftists have, more modern leftists, and that is a conflict I've noticed quite often within the left. And the misogyny transgender people is very, very interesting because um, Vaush has Vaush has made some very like intersectional comments. You know what he said. I mean, Cat Black actually mentions what he says about J.K. Rowling in her article. That he says basically she deserves to be cancelled. She could have been a classic children's author, famous for a century, and instead, she says these things, and so she's been kicked out of the fold. And he says, good. But on the other hand, he'll, possibly that in her own dealings with Vaush, even before the little personal incident, he felt that she felt that he was not being doing enough for trans rights. In other words, he kind of ticks both boxes that seem contradictory.
mm. Transphobia and misogyny are intrinsically tied. Transgender women are seen as shameful men who lower themselves to become something lesser than them and trans. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna get my other screenshots. I didn't want to read the whole thing because it's very, very, very long.
We
I think
probably need to do a couple of separate streams for this, really, Ren, shouldn't we? Because there's so much here. There's so much in this article.
yeah, that's the reason why I try to stay on topic. I thought it
Yeah.
was really important to stay on topic and not try to go off on a tangent. Like comments on the article, but try to avoid go off on a tangent.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Let's see. Trying to remember gadgets for the kitchen massage nowhere near, but that was a narrow way of viewing it. I think it's because misogyny has impacted my life very drastically. I have a very different response to stuff like this. To me, the idea that we can weaponize isms against people we dislike really doesn't seem productive. It seems like fighting against one problem while creating. Yeah, I noticed that. Like I've noticed that. Like for example, the trans community calls me like a turf like all of the time, but then they would, call me a bunch of ableistic slurs that they would, take shots about my mental health. Like, they would basically be calling me like the R word, or it would be
Uh-huh.
like calling me like an idiot or moron. So it's kind of like, but it's like if you are, to the left and a feminist, aren't you supposed to fight against ableism? Like, isn't that one of your progressive goals? You know,
Yeah. Well, you there, Ren?
yeah, I'm still
I'm
here.
sorry. I thought you just went quiet suddenly. No. Well, feminists are quite selective and about where they strike and who they strike, and they very often contradict themselves ethically all the time. However, she's right here where she says weaponizing isms against people we dislike doesn't seem productive. Fighting one problem, creating another. Unfortunately, I see it so much now, all over the place, that I don't really know how to stop it. Ren, it's everywhere. That people will use these things as in essentially flags of convenience, or that's the wrong metaphor. Simply weapons of convenience. If they'll find something to say about you, do you know what I mean? Like they would call you a name relating to your mental health or something, or your behavior. If they can't do that, they'll find it. It'll be something else. With me, it's often they say I'm overweight, and they'll call me overweight, and they use various slurs for people who are
Yeah,
overweight, things
the,
like
the,
that.
the problem is. the hypocrisy of it all. Like, they are against fat shaming,
Mm,
but it's kind of a lot like then it's kind of like they would suddenly support, fat shaming if you're part of the wrong group. It's like, yeah, it's like how they would call me a turf nonstop, and I would get like all of these sweets calling me a turf, but then they would just, basically, call me ableistic slurs and whatnot, like
yeah.
particularly the fans that take down MRAs. Or it's kind of a lot like, they'll be against fat shaming, but if you are a conservative or an anti-SJW, they'll suddenly think that fat shaming is suddenly okay.
Yeah, it's indeed. I've seen it so much. It's a pity that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of you know what they reminded me of? They remind me of the pick and choose Christians.
Yeah. Mm. That
Uh,
it's a very religious sort of thing in a way. I mean, some people have compared it to a cult. It's a kind of religion without God in a way.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Mm.
I understand it's being said in a cathartic context, even if I still disagree, but I didn't understand it in the context of advocacy for transgender women. Oh, I've had this conversation with Lapis, who's a trans woman, but when I do try to get her to talk about trans issues, she didn't seem all that interested in talking about trans issues. So
Mm.
it's kind of like if so even though I thought that Lapis would have been a good guest, if she's not interested in talking about trans issues, I can't force her to.
Some people don't want to go into it in detail, and it may be because, I mean, when you put yourself out there the way we do, it's actually quite, you're facing quite a you're facing quite a lot of adversity. You put yourself in a position where you could face a lot of adversity. Not everyone wants that.
Yeah, but it's kind of like I took a screenshot. Well, I didn't take a screenshot. I found a screenshot of a Vaush saying something like, "Women be quieter and stop apologizing." Challenge, but what's it? The mantra,
Yeah.
yeah, or like the motto of the left is "Trans women are real women." And trans people have been fighting to be included in the word women.
Oh, this is
Like,
a tweet. This is a tweet. All J.K. Rowling had to do was shut up, and she would have almost been uncritically beloved for a century. Women, be quieter and start apologizing. Challenge. I don't know exactly what the context is for that, but he's telling women be quieter and start apologizing. Challenge.
and he did that in
Yeah.
defense of trans women. But then the issue, like I was like, okay, Lapis, are you a trans woman? And she's like, yes. And I said, like, well, are trans women real women? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so when Vasha says women to be quieter and starts apologizing, isn't he thereby telling trans women to be quieter and starts apologizing?
I'm not sure exactly what Vaush meant when he said that. I know he seems to be pro intersectional. He's very
But
critical of
you
the
can
turfs.
But think of it this way, like if he says women be quieter and starts apologizing challenge, it would if he believed that trans women are real women, then he would in effect be telling trans women to be quieter and starts apologizing.
I suppose, yeah. This is. I suppose this is one of the. There's. It's one of the contradictory things the left sometimes comes out with, like they'll
But
say
but
things like,
Vosh
"Well,
made
what
it
are
clear.
women? What are women?" That there's even like a judge on the Supreme Court now who won't answer what a woman is. Um,
She probably won't last for long because
nah, and then on the other hand, you have like when a woman got murdered here in Britain by a police officer, suddenly we were back to two genders again. It was women and murderers, things like that, which kind of to me seems contradictory. I mean, as a non-leftist, I can look into it from the outside and commentate as not in a non-partisan way. But I do find it, even if I was within the framework, I would find it hard to marry these two. I think oxymoronic ideas because they seem to not to fit together logically.
yeah, like so if Vosh is gonna say, women be quieter and starts to apologize and challenge, then like he is in effect telling trans women to be quiet and starts apologizing. That is, if he views trans women as real women, which
Mhm.
he clearly doesn't, because he said that in defense of trans people.
If he'd said cis women instead of just women,
Yeah,
what would have happened then? Yeah.
if he said cis women, be quieter and stop apologizing, challenge, or J.K. Rowling, be quieter and starts apologizing, challenge, or TERFs, be quieter and starts apologizing, challenge. But instead he said women, but that excludes trans women. So he is
Mhm.
excluding trans women in the term women.
Could be, yeah, yeah. It's a
No, that's what he did. That's the
yeah.
reason. That is the reason why Cat Black written this article.
All right.
That
Yeah.
is the very reason why Cat Black written this article in the first place. Is because when he said women, he excluded trans women. He didn't
I
say
see.
cis women. He didn't even say like turfs or chicken rolling. He said women, but he used the word women to exclude trans women because he could have said, as you said, cis women, be
Mm.
quieter and start to apologize and challenge. But he said women, but he didn't use women as in a word that includes trans women.
Yeah.
Which is why Cat Black is complaining in the first place.
It could be, it could be simply implied from the context that he meant, turfs or cis women who are anti-trans in
Yeah, but
any
that
way.
is the
And
reason why Cat
yeah,
Black is complaining, and the
the
reason why ContraPoints is
well,
complaining.
the thing is that it's possible. Like I said, after reading this article, I get the feeling that yes, if I could play amateur psychologist, her opposition to divorce may come from their personal relationship, which we could maybe get into because I was quite shocked to find she had this personal relationship with him. I don't know when the right time is to bring this up, where it fits in,
Yeah,
if we're going through this
yeah, but we're
chronologically.
going off on a tangent, which
Yeah.
makes it harder to get through the
Okay.
article.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll have to finish about 4 o'clock, and it's maybe we haven't given this enough time. We haven't got given ourselves enough time, but so sorry if I've held us up, but carry on.
Um, I understand it's being said in a Cardetti context, even if I still disagree, but I didn't understand it's in a context of advocacy for transgender women. I had a well rounded conversation about his ideas, and it's reached its natural conclusion. I mostly ignored Twitter for the rest of the evening. Then, late at night, while I was waiting for my boyfriend to get off work, I got to the Reddit message from Vaush. He was upset about my tweets. He believed that I had, um, he believed that I had some sorts of hate spawner for him and really didn't appreciate my public criticism of his tweets. Frankly, I was baffled because I didn't understand why he'd care. I was having an objective conversation about his ideas, not him as a creator. My thread didn't include personal attacks, nor did it encourage people to attack him. It was quite the opposite, but he was convinced. Once again, what such can be taken at face value. There was some spoken sinister nature be needed my words.
Thing about Vosh is though he tends to overreact. That's actually within character for him to do that. I don't know if you've noticed, but he often goes through people's criticism, and I think he overreacts towards what they're saying. It's not just Cat, it's everyone.
Oh, that's the screenshots that I had for that I took it from and I posted in the group DMs, but I stopped
Mm.
posting on the DMs because I didn't want to annoy people. But I tweeted about it more. I had to switch to my tweets, but I think you only have like 30 minutes left.
Yeah. See, I do want to get into this because it's very important to see this through through how I would feel if I had a personal relationship with somebody. And she did have a some kind of sexual relationship online with Vosh. She says this. What did you think of that?
Um, I think the Cat Black, I think she has like a mental health issues in all honesty. I think she either has either anxiety or autism. I don't know which. Did she say in the article if she has anxiety or autism? I could try. Um, I don't know if Control F is going to help, but autism. Um, uh,
Just got a hyperlink
it's
here for
not
the
help.
messages.
It's not helping, but it probably because her article is too long for it
Mm.
to catch it. But
She has
but
a she's put it in a zip file. It's on a hyperlink. And I'm not actually read these messages, but what she says is that she has she's used the word sexted. Now that just means sending um, or erotic messages to each other. And from what I gather, let me read through this again. They exchange pictures of each other in which she says he has an unimpressive penis. um,
yeah, I think she has mental health issues
mm,
because she's like, why do people think that I'm obsessed with Vaush? But then she just writes things like that. When it's kind of like, shouldn't it be kind of obvious? Like, if you like go into all of these details about, something that most people would consider to be private, if you're going to go on and on and on about him in that sort of way, shouldn't it be obvious? That's why I think she has like autism, because it's like she can't really seem to comprehend how she is seen from the outside. Like, it's like, that's the reason why people on Twitter like Cat Black says that she is not obsessed with Vaush, but then spends all of this time talking about him. And she's like, no,
yeah.
no, no, I'm just trying to make a correction. I want to correct all of it. But then it's like, well, I'm thinking like, does she has like autism or some sort of anxiety disorder, like some sort of disorder where she cannot like comprehend like don't people who suffer from autism, not be aren't they incapable of telling like what is and isn't appropriate to talk about?
It's a lack of social skills. Very often they have. They're not necessarily unpleasant people, but sometimes they sometimes appear to be tactless. Autistic people. I
Yeah,
don't know specifically if Kat has a condition, but she's clearly very very intense in this article here. I was quite shocked what she said about Vaush. I haven't looked through these. I've just only just now clicked the hyperlink. I haven't looked through these messages, but she said she essentially had an online sexual relationship with him. This is going to be very emotionally intense. To have a relationship with someone in that way is always going to affect your judgment, whoever you are. It would affect mine if I was in that position. If for example, if it was my ex girlfriend um, doing a certain thing, I would behave very differently. I'd react very differently to it as I would if just an ordinary person was doing it, someone who wasn't my ex girlfriend. And the fact that I did have a sexual relationship with it is going to affect my thinking towards that person, whether or not you have autism or not. And this is why when I read this, I did question a bit whether had influenced Cat Black's assessment of Vaush.
well,
Whether
what kept like did get into like why she brought it up. Let me try to play the audio. um
I don't know why she would share these things with people. No, I mean, I hope she hasn't shared the pictures. I don't want to see Vaush's
oh well, you're talking what a
version.
video is playing.
Sorry.
I could try screen sharing. Let's see. That's the way you could see me click on the video. Maybe it doesn't help when I don't screen share, but screen share. And I think the name of the article will be Black in the City. Um, let's see. Is it Black in the City? Uh, I hate this. This is not as easy as Google Hangout. Wait a minute. I think I found it. I think I found it. I think I found it.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try to click play. Let me see.
About that. Yeah, Vaush, pretty much exactly what Cat states he's into. All right, are you guys ready for the mildest hot take in the universe? Okay. Super idpol, like lefty black women who are like really condescending to white people in terms of their ability to engage in political discourse. Love fucking white dudes. It's the exact same reason that racist white guys all watch interracial porn to jerk off to. It's the exact same thing. It's identical. There's no difference. It's literally the exact same goddamn thing. It's true. I'm sorry, guys. People who have like racist thoughts tend to like weirdly fetishize like interracial race shit for like probably reasons they should be more critical of. If any of you people think that this is like controversial, then I genuinely wonder why you think. Do you think, for example, that black people and white people are like fundamentally different species?
I didn't know if you were able to catch that.
I did, yeah. I actually watched it earlier as well when I was reading the article. But yeah, I think maybe he's speaking from experience.
Yeah, like Cat Black could just help his point by, like I think she is has autism, but she actually ended up helping his point. Like like hey, like he just made like a quick, brief statement, like, "Hey, she's racist, that she has the hots for me," and then she just writes all of that, and there's like nothing in her head to got her like, "Hey, maybe it's a bad idea. Like maybe I should just be, like maybe I should just leave it alone, or maybe I should just be a lot like like maybe to something like that. Maybe to like what Vaush said, it probably would have been better to have just left it alone. Like,
Yeah.
you said it, but I'm just gonna leave it alone. I am not going to respond to it. I'm going to ignore it completely.
It's it's possible that what she's trying to do is she may be actually literally be trying to embarrass him. This could be her objective. I mean, I think it's a bad idea getting involved in these kinds of relationships. If you can't meet somebody, then don't, for goodness sake, don't do anything like online, sending messages unless you really can trust that person. Don't ever do that, because you could get in the most awful trouble, because they might be recording things, they might be screenshotting things. All these pictures, these intimate pictures you might send, they might try to exploit that by using that to attack you, by publicizing things that you don't want publicized.
Yeah, I just think she has like mental health issues. Like I
Yeah.
think it's just autism. I do have more screenshots, but I know that you only have 20 minutes left, so I didn't know if you just wanted to end it here.
We could go on for a bit longer if you want. I mean, I've got to have to go at 4, but there's still 20 minutes if you want to go on for a bit longer. And you got any
Okay.
more? If you've got any more screenshots you want to discuss?
I had to go to my profile.
Okay.
Um, and I lost so many followers. I don't know what. I don't know if it. Well, usually when I lose followers, it's because it's usually because the accounts follow me get suspended.
Yeah, I mean, I've found, my followers suddenly drop occasionally, and I'll get a few more. And it's not all of them are real people. A lot of them are ad bots and things like that. Um, so I wouldn't worry about. I mean, it's all about the interaction. If you're getting good interaction from others, that's the main thing. You've got like a core of people who will support you, or will follow you, and are with you.
Oh, I don't have that many more screenshots to go, so we might be able actually to get them all actually,
Oh, cool.
because I only have like a little bit more to go, like a
Mm.
little bit more. So it should be here. Yeah, because it's like we've already, let's see, we've already did that one.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah. Is this in your DMs? Because I can like go to your DMs now.
Um, I didn't understand
No,
why the
not.
conversation needed to happen to begin with. Let's say we went over everything and he convinced me that his tweets wasn't that bad. My question wasn't how he felt about it. It was about how transgender women felt about people who use misogyny to advocate for transgender women. We already covered that.
Yeah.
He was not the target audience of my post. Trans women are J.K. Rowling's main targets, but I got the impression from his conversation he resented blah blah blah. Transgender women sharing her inputs about the efficacy of his advocacy. Once again, the fact that he was saying anything was apparently enough, and I should appreciate it and stop complaining. At a certain point, he told me that he was a better advocate for the transgender community than I have ever been. Yeah, yeah, like my video took a shot at Vaush a little bit.
That sounds very spiteful saying that. Yeah, because he knows how that's kind of hitting her where it hurts, isn't it?
Yeah, he told me that he was a better advocate for transgender community than I've ever been, which seemed like a needless, arrogant thing for a cis man to say to a transgender woman who quite literally sacrificed Dove. Oh yeah, because she wrote in an article that she pretended to be a biological woman. Um,
Yeah, and
and
she. Yeah.
and subsequent safety to advocate for transgender people. And I said, I'm not trans, but I can relate to this. How many white people on the left treat on the left treat black issues? Uh, White people on the left come across as very narcissistic. They seem to want a cookie for talking about black issues without listening to black people. Yeah.
Mm. Maybe it's like we were talking about earlier. There's they sometimes expect too much from taking on this social contract. They expect to be showered with praise all the time. And that
Yeah.
they regard sometimes they regard the other person's. Some of them just may have legitimate criticisms of the others for being overcritical, but I get the feeling they are narcissistic. A lot of them, I think. I've got to say, even though I watch him all the time, Kevin Logan is not someone I could get on with. I couldn't. That's for Christy Winters. God, no, I couldn't get on with her.
That's going to go off on a tangent. I don't
Mm.
think it's a coincidence that so many of the situations where people have hyper focus on my less than polite words have been instances where I've been standing up for myself. As a self critical person, I can acknowledge my own isms in some of the things I've said and done and seen them as negative and unhelpful. At the same time, I recognize how much more freedom white critters get to be rude and if it's a disrespect. When I think about this, I wonder if it could be because Vaush and Cat Black courted two different audiences.
Maybe. I mean, I'm looking at Cat Black's videos here. She's got she's got some. She talks about maybe allyship was a mistake, things like that. You've got the best BD. Oh, good blimey, turning. I'm just going through some of the titles she has here, which does seem to be like she does seem to have quite an audience. I wouldn't say that. What's the term she uses? She certainly does seem to have some freedom here. I mean, obviously she's going to get her detractors, and people are going to be quite unpleasant to her, like they are online. But she's certainly getting attention. I mean, people are listening to what she has to say. So she's obviously hitting a correct note somewhere.
Yeah, I'm thinking that uh Vosh has courted a very different audience than Cat. Like, because she says like I recognize how much more freedom our creators gets to be rooted in the face of disrespect. I'm just thinking that Vosh is trying to get the debate me bro crowd while she is a video essayist. So the people who watch him don't necessarily watch her. So people, if she tries to be nice all the time, then if she steps to the line, then the people who want pleasant behavior would probably take issue with her because just because they're both on the left doesn't mean that they share an audience.
I haven't seen enough of her material to know for sure, but as for Vosh, he definitely courts the debate me crowd. Absolutely, he does. And it could be that these people may well be like a demographic imbalance. There may be more white people involved with that than non-white people. I don't know. I mean, it's that's definitely. Vosh certainly is that kind of creator, without a doubt. In fact, he likes it. He enjoys it. He people probably more people watch the videos where he is most bombastic.
And respectability politics very subtly teaches you that creating boundaries for yourself or even simply saying fuck off makes you one of those people. The more you meditates on it, the more you recognize that respectability politics are constructed to keep you in a position where you never quite get to accurately describe harm, where you never get to be justifiably angry or frustrated by the things that harm you. It has a way of telling you to temper your pain and placate to people who are already struggling with the idea that you're taking up space to begin with. When I broke down in my video about latitude being so white, that was the exact emotion that broke through. The frustration with the fact that I cannot simply just say that I am scared and be trusted. I must politely dance and show fancy graphics that explain the exact reasons why I deserve to be. I hadn't processed that the very premise of having conversations like that require me to debase myself.
All right.
But it still goes back to that they are probably courting two different audiences
Yeah.
instead of courting the exact same people. Um,
Yeah, that paragraph is pretty much very subjective. I can't really comment on that except to say, you know, I'm I don't wish her any harm. I mean, she may have a legitimate gripe, or she may be being unfair. But either way, I don't. I've only heard her side of the story, but I don't. I do wish her well. I don't wish her to be distressed in any way.
I can sit here and pontificate about how frequently he's been able to get away with saying terrible things to people. That's because he's courting a different audience.
Mm.
But that's would be repetitive. Yeah, it has been repetitive. I already knew why, but I doubted my perception. I doubt your perception too, honey. My frustration was based in this idea that we were both equally considered for our ideas and arguments, but that was naive. Now I no longer doubt my own understanding. I clearly see the reason he and other bloggers like him get to be the sort of person they are, and I'm getting less leeway. Let's see. Let me see what I wrote. Yeah, I have noticed this in leftist circles that black creators are given less leeway room than their white counterpoints. That's white leftists get to be abrasive, but they'll make and she speaks cat black or any other black leftist life living hell if they ever say anything like. But now that I really think about it, they could be courting to different audiences.
Mm.
However, I mean, if it was somebody who has a more if it's another video essayist, if it's another video essayist, then we can make a more proper judgments if there is a more identical video format. This experience was frustrating, but I am so thankful for the clarity this brought me. I've learned to stop attempting to placate to emotions of people who need to be convinced I'm not who they very clearly assume I was. I thought I had grown out of the habits, but when I reflect on my experiences, I realized that this is still a subconscious part of the way I approach these conversations. It's clear I still have unpacking to do. However, as our world becomes darker and the rights of transgender people are fought against so viciously, it does not serve me to nurture my arguments with pleasantries and a degree of consideration I am never getting. I'm not about to feel bad for dismissing someone outright for engaging in behavior that is obviously antagonistic towards me. I'm still a great thinker and someone who doesn't. Yeah, and that's the end. Like I think that's the end in general.
It's yeah, nearly. It's very close to the end there
Yeah,
because you
that's
know.
the end of my
Okay,
screenshots.
that's almost the end of the article. She just sort of sums up after that. It's 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 clear that maybe she she can't be in that kind of world that Vaush is in. She can't be a part of that.
Yeah, because
And
it's like
why would I couldn't either. I mean, why would anyone? I don't know why some people would want to be. Quite frankly, it's got nothing to do with race. It's just the kind of person that he is. It's the kind of it's the size of his audience and the kind of his audience, like you said.
Yeah, it's like, actually, Cat Black has more subscribers than Vaush.
Does
Vaush
she?
only has he only has 400K subscribers, so Cat Black actually has more
She's
subscribers
beaten him
than
slightly in terms
Vaush.
of subs. Yeah, she's beaten him. Yeah, but
Yeah,
they are clearly. I mean, I haven't looked at enough of the material, but they're clearly very very different. But they had this argument, which then led to a kind of like some kind of a sexual liaison, which is that's a bad way to start a relationship. I know people do it, and not just online. I've known people do it in real life. They have a massive hate. They have massive hatred to each other, and they end up sleeping together. I don't know why people do that, but they do.
yeah, I don't get it either. I really don't get it, but it's just like didn't she write in her article that she has the hots for leftist white guys?
She mentioned that something about yes they love white black women or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, this
I don't
Sharon
know.
that, but I I really just think that she has a mental illness. That's what I really think she has.
Yeah, I would certainly treat her. I would treat her carefully. I would honestly, because yeah, I mean, I've noticed. She talks about at the beginning of the article. She talks about her background. She's 31 years old, and she's been like a kind of transgender person. She says since she was a little kid, and she was very lonely. She had a relationship with a man who came from a very traditional Catholic family from Orange County, California, and she was secret. She was very secretive for a while, but then she became open. She sort of became um, more open about herself. Presumably, the family of this guy didn't like the relationship. I mean, she doesn't say that, but it's kind of implied. She says
Well,
something else weird. She says this is weird. She said she went into a shop once, just doing a shopping, and a woman came up and touched her hair and just said, "Oh, put a hand on her hair like that." A stranger. And she politicized this and said, "Well, that's what white women can do to black women." But I think that's just a weird thing to do, no matter who's doing it, to
yeah,
whoever.
I think it's just weird no matter what because I mean that's never happened to me. A white person never did that to me.
I had a little baby grab my head. See, I'm bald. I'm completely bald. And a little baby once, who was in like a shoulder carry, reached out and touched my head once, just a little kind of like about 18 months old, and I just laughed. But I've never had an adult come up to me and do that. I've never had it. I've never seen that happen in a shop where someone of either color comes up and does something like. I certainly don't think it's something she should. I don't see why she's politicizing this and saying white women go around all the time touch. I don't know exactly what she says. White women go and touch black people's hair and they think they can do it. That to me
Yeah,
sounds like very odd behavior she experienced, and I think she's maybe assessed it in the wrong way.
yeah. That never happened to me before. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, white women have asked for permission to touch my hair. It's kind of like, may I have your permission to touch my hair? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, sure, go ahead. But no woman like just straight up walking up to me to touch my hair because that would be weird.
It's
But
a
black
very odd
women
thing,
have
yeah,
done. But black women have done it, but they did it to be like mean, like they were yanking my hair.
oh
They
no, yeah.
were, like some people would do it just to be mean and
Yeah,
ugly and hateful.
because of obviously pulling someone's hair is a form of violence, and especially women do it to each other a lot. I've seen them do it to each other. But
Because
to go up to someone and touch their hair, even say, "Can I touch your hair, please?" Why? What? A stranger in a shop. Can I touch your hair? I mean, why would someone do that to Kat? And maybe she just encountered a very odd person, a very strange, eccentric person.
well, white women have asked them for permission to touch my hair,
Yeah.
but to be fair, I like one of the women who asked, like I knew them for like a few, like
Mm.
I knew them for a while.
I would never go up to a bloody person and put my hand on them in any way. I'd shake someone's hand sometimes, but I mean that's just weird. I think she sounds. Maybe she needs to take time out from this community. I mean, if she's just come off this relationship with Vosh, and so she's going to be a bit. I mean, like anyone who's ended a relationship, maybe I don't know what went on between them. Quite frankly, I don't know what the hell went. I'm not sure I want to look at these messages she's put here.
Yeah, it's just
I
again,
don't want to see them.
it's also why I think she's mentally ill, because it's like, why do people think I'm obsessed with Vaush? Why do so many people think I'm obsessed with Vaush? I am not obsessed with Vaush. But then she goes on and on and on and on about, the messages they sent to each other. Like, it's kind of like you're kind of hurting your own point. You're shooting yourself in the foot here. Like,
Yeah.
it's that she doesn't have any sort of self-awareness of how she would come across saying, I'm not obsessed with Vosh, but then turns writes around and then she writes about, like all of these messages between them, and then talk about how she have the hots with white men, white leftist men with beard, which does make her seem obsessed. I just think she
Yeah.
has autism. I think she's on the spectrum.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it is obsessive to put it like she's got a hyperlink in this article which is like a Dropbox. She says all the messages we sent to each other are here, and I've just downloaded them to Dropbox. I'm probably going to delete them because I don't want to see, especially if there's photos in there. I don't want to see Vosh's mid wicket. Quite frankly, I'm not interested. I think it would be disgusting, but that is an obsessive thing to do. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah, and like don't people who suffer from autism like have zero like self-awareness, and
Yeah.
they're like tactless and have like poor social skills and have the inability to see how like other people would perceive them. Like, like,
Yeah.
or like, like she could have at least have like an editor, either an editor or a close friend to go like, if you're gonna say that you're not obsessed with Vosh, then obsessing over your DMs is a really bad idea.
Mm.
Like, doesn't she even have any close friends to say, hey, maybe leave that out because it's a really bad idea?
Yeah, most autistic people can have treatment and they can have like guidance with things like that. And maybe she needs a bit of that because, like autism, you do generally have, like you mentioned, the word tactless is a good one. They tend not to understand little social mores, so they often behave in ways which are different to how most other people would behave. It's not a lack of empathy. For example, some people compare psychopaths to autists, but it's not. Psychopathy is a complete lack of any consideration for other people, any empathy, any sympathy, any kind of emotions for other people. Autistic people do feel these emotions for others, but they just don't. They don't really know how to express them or perceive them properly.
Mm, Professor Platypus says, my newly adopted guinea pigs, Elon and Muskrats, says hello. Oh, hello.
Hello. Those are great names, Elon and Muskrat.
Uh,
Those are
Great
great
names.
names,
Yeah, great
Professor.
names. And you don't have to feel sorry about me. Like, I didn't care when a person wanted to touch my hair. I really did care. Oh, but I did care when that black girl yanked my hair. Now, I
Mm,
did care when that black girl, when there were black girls yanking my hair. It's like, okay, like, that is rude and uncalled for. And
yeah,
like I kept getting the teacher involved because that black girl kept yanking my hair.
that's just violent. Yeah, but like
Yeah,
if,
that's
if
just
someone
violence.
if someone came up to me and says, "Can I touch you?" and I say, "Well, why?" My question would be, "Why do you want to do that?" If it's a stranger, I say, "Why?" I so that's odd behaviour. Yeah, but
I think it's because black women have a different hair texture than white women.
they do. Yeah, I mean, when I was a little kid and when I first came to Oxford, because I come from West Wales. That's my where my home is. My original home. I used to stare at black people a lot. My parents told me I was only 8 years old because I hadn't seen black people before. Because it was all white. Where I lived, the town I lived in Wales was completely white. So I used to stare at black people, and that was only because I was a kid and I hadn't seen one. And I got used to it eventually. I was just a little kid. But I didn't go and touch people's hair.
Yeah, it's like we just have a different hair texture than white people.
That's right. I used to look at them in the back of class, and I used to go, I used to think that's strange. When I was sitting in school when I first arrived in Oxford. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to head off. But I appreciate you having me on the show. I really do. Really
and thank you for having this discussion with me. I am surprised that we were able to get all of my screenshots. I am actually surprised because that was a very long article, and I knew it was going to take 2 hours. I knew it was going to take 2 hours.
When you said you wanted to deep dive the whole thing, I thought, are we going to have time for all this? But we managed to get it. I think we covered. I've made some notes here. We've covered everything that was in my notes. So I think we did. We've done pretty well considering we just had 2 hours there. We covered the main points, I think. See you. Bye-bye, Professor. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, Professor Platypus, and goodbye, everybody else.